Hammurabi was king of Babylon, a title that became significantly more illustrious during his reign. He proved himself a fearless warrior and conqueror, but more than that, he provided peace and stability to our ancestors' ancient past. This is Ancestoria, the advancements of Hammurabi. Hammurabi ascended to his throne in 8209 HE. For the vast majority of his reign, Hammurabi focused on domestic improvements, beginning with the cancellation of debts which required all lenders to free people from paying back their loans. In addition, this had freed people who had become slaves through debt. He also financed and took part in the construction of new canals in order to irrigate fields that would otherwise remain fallow, as well as taking in refugees and increasing the fortifications of cities. This further increased the economic wealth of his land and people by strengthening both the production of foodstuffs and a safe exchange behind walls. These endeavors would occur for the majority of his reign until a towering threat emerged in the east. The Kingdom of Elam was an old power, dating back 1200 years by the time of Hammurabi. Rich and able to field impressive armies, it was a titan of its time that held a heavy hand in the affairs of Mesopotamia. In 8234 HE, they broke from precedent by invading and occupying parts of Mesopotamia. At the same time, they ordered Hammurabi to cede lands to them under the threat of invasion, while at the same time attempting to isolate him from his allies. Additionally, Elam required Babylon to commit troops for invasion of Larsa, and required Larsa to do the same for an invasion of Babylon. Hammurabi and Larsa's king were able to break through this deception and made a secret alliance with each other. However, it was not Larsa that would fight with him, but Mari. He was able to push them back with the allied forces he had hastily gathered, though in large part due to rebellion in enemy ranks. Despite their alliance, Larsa played no part in the war, and so Hammurabi turned his forces towards them and annexed their lands in order to remove them as a potential threat. He wanted to do the same to Eshnunna, but Mari broke their alliance. By now, Hammurabi was one of the most powerful kings in Mesopotamia and used his newly conquered lands to reinforce his armies and soon invoked revenge on Mari. He subjected them and Eshnunna to servitude after their defeat. Within 4 years, he had vanquished all threats to the peace of Mesopotamia. Hammurabi embarked on his conquest out of necessity. However, he fully transformed Babylon from a small state that was subject to the whims of the surrounding nations to the dominant power in the region. His rise finally put an end to the age of the city-states, bringing further stability and cooperation to the region. Independent cities no longer fought constant wars between themselves, and while the larger states that replaced them did, more people were shielded from conflict. With a single state ruling over, cities upstream could no longer deny water to those further down the path, and new canals were constructed to ensure fields could be established further afield. Hammurabi allowed all to approach him and regularly took it upon himself to ensure fairness across all of society, providing peace and prosperity throughout his lands. In his final years, 8246 to 8251 HE, he completed his code of laws and had them erected across his kingdom. Nearly 300 laws were engraved, specifying scenarios and their consequences if they were to occur. While these laws were a collection of regional practices, rather than Hammurabi's invention, they carried more severe punishments. They were meant to establish standardized law and order with absolute punishments across the land, both to dissuade perpetrators and to give victims a sense of satisfaction that justice would prevail. However, these were in no way egalitarian, because those of higher classes were able to pay their way out of crimes. Hammurabi had impressive conquests, but for the vast majority of his reign, he focused on improving the lives of our ancestors. He created wealth and occasionally freed the poor from their debts, and while his laws vastly favored the rich, at the very least, those who were wrong could seek recompense. Our civilizations have never reached the ideals of visionaries and likely never will, but just as we view our laws as infinitely better than Hammurabi's, perhaps those in Hammurabi's time saw their laws as that much more than those who had come before. This is Ancestoria, the history of our ancestors.